Welcome to the Mel Carmine podcast. Before we begin, I have something you need to see. 11 years ago in Costa Rica, I took a photograph that changed my life forever. I don't claim to speak to God, but I do believe He gave me a mission. Let me show you the photo, then you decide. If you're serious about protecting and growing your wealth, pay close attention. Looking to acquire XRP, I can help. Minimum purchase is $10,000 and there is no maximum. Whether you're investing $10,000 or $10 million, text me directly at 786-704-8817. And while you're at it, ask us how a religious irrevocable trust can get you off the grid and fully protect your assets and investments. Interested in gold and silver? For extremely competitive prices, visit carminesgold.com. Our minimum order is $50,000 and there is no maximum. We can handle virtually any size transaction. Then visit QFS1776.com for exclusive merchandise, links to our social media, and a library of 100% free videos explaining the new financial system millions are following. No hype, no paywall, just information. Don't miss our 5-star documentary everyone is talking about. Dear Mr. President, show me the money. Visit dearmrpresident.net and ask yourself, what if we show you irrefutable, irrevocable evidence in our movie that everyone with a social security number is worth hundreds of millions of dollars? Do we have your attention? The link is in the description below. Finally, join our official Telegram groups and be aware of fake Mel Carmine accounts. If anyone tells you that you must register your XRP with the so-called quantum financial system, it's a scam. Now subscribe and share this episode with someone you care about. Turn up the heat on these scammers and let's get to work. Also, scan the QR code and opt in so you don't miss any amazing workshops at Staying Alive in Cape Canaveral. Now, here's your host, Mel Carmine. Well, good evening, folks. We got Judah with us. Judah and I usually bump into each other at these crazy, storm summits. And so we're about to have another one with some impressive people that I've never got a chance to meet. For example, James O'Keefe, Stephen Bannon. I met Bolsonaro the last time. I don't know why I keep sending messages to his bodyguard, but to no avail. He's not answering back. So I'm gonna see if I can corner him when I get there. And we got Roseanne Barr, who's coming in the flesh this time, which is going to be pretty amazing. You'll be there, right?
Yep, I'll be there. It'll be awesome.
Very, very, very cool. So, but let me exit out of this, and I'm going to show you something that's really funny. Do you see my screen?
That's awesome.
This is hysterical. This is wild. Look at his hair.
You put that in your new film at all?
Yeah. Is that wild or what?
That is wild. It's amazing what can be done now with some technology.
So let's talk about Fort Knox. I know that supposedly Rand Paul went there to see if there's any gold. I'm completely out of the loop. I've been very busy. Did they find any gold there?
I don't think they found anything there yet.
Well, then it's not been opened yet.
President Trump keeps mentioning, hey, where are we going to find all these gold audits from around the world? But they haven't found anything yet. So we'll stand by, right?
Sure. Let's talk about what you are hot on. Do you want to talk about maybe the Iran war or what's going on that front? I'll leave it up to you, and I'll just tag along with the conversation.
Yeah, really, we can start with my website and what happened with us on January 6th.
Mm-hmm.
Really, it dials into the findings that what Juanito was interested in terms of what we went through. And obviously, when people see that from the history, it's completely fascinating. But yeah, I've got my slide deck here that goes through a lot of the findings from that. And so, this revolves around, the Great Reset in a lot of different ways because it's the same players, the players that are involved. And so
Sure.
my website is wewillstand.info. Wewillstand.info is a legal case really against the Amway Corporation and some of their LOAs. And with that being said, on January 6th, I was with about 30 different people, some of them Amway business owners at the time in DC. And we say the storms in life are not meant to break us, but bend us toward God.
Hmm.
And really, that's where we're at right now. And a couple days later, as everyone knows, we are down there in the Storm Summit. People are getting a chance to hear from really whistleblowers from around the country
Sure.
in terms of everything they've been involved in, everything they've done. Mel, you've talked to some of the greatest people around the world in terms of what's being pulled off and why. But
Yeah.
my life radically changed because of this group of men and women. Really, days after J6, they started getting ripped out of their homes. And what were they doing there? They were there to pray for the country.
Right.
And, as they were getting ready to pray for the country, absolutely, my cell phone started going off and I started looking for help for these people that were innocent. They didn't do anything wrong.
Sure.
And next thing you know, they're in prisons and jails around the country being flown with bags over their head, not knowing where they're supposed to be, not having their rights as civilians, as people. And as we started to understand this whole thing, you know very well about this Q operation that's been going on. And sometimes you can't tell the public the truth. You got to show them.
Yeah, but even when you show them, some of them are too stupid to understand what it is, and because they haven't been, really involved in the depths of what Q really is, they just literally shut it off, and they go, the way of Fox News. And again, obviously, if they were to stick around and they get into an argument with me and you, or people that are up to speed on what's really going on with the Q movement, then we make them look pretty stupid. They don't want to do that, so they just literally get on a different subject and they get in a different lane, as you just put it.
Yeah, and it's like Juanito, he'll explain to people. And he was just talking about today on one of his shows that literally these these globalists, from their perspective in terms of what they've been doing, for years, behind the curtain, they had an agenda.
Oh
And
yeah.
as we look at that agenda, these people, the Kissingers, the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds,
Hmm.
all these groups, DeVos and Van Andels, these people have been behind the curtain with their own plans of what they wanted to do for humanity.
Sure.
And Gerald Ford himself, people know if you listen to anybody long enough, I know you've interviewed Kathy O'Brien, um, and kind of her personal testimonies, but Gerald Ford was part of a club that really a lot of people don't want to talk about.
Sure.
And as we get into the 60s and the 70s, 1974, 75, he was the only president never elected to office. And we can have controversy going back to the 1800s and 1700s, but literally in today's modern day history, the gentleman was installed really by the CIA. And once you start to understand that whole group in terms of what happened, the mighty pen, they say is more powerful than anything. Gerald Ford with Jimmy Carter, what they do is they installed what's called the Senior Executive Service. And that Senior Executive Service basically hijacked our government for multi generations.
Yeah. Well, one of my good clients that comes from the Carolinas, who comes down to our center down in Cape Canaveral, works for the SEC. He's a high-ranking dude for that organization. He's actually one of the good guys. There's some good guys in every
There's a few of them in
organization.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and those are the guys who literally, I mean, they're coming out whistleblowing, and to have the intestinal fortitude in the spine of someone like yourself, to come forward and talk about these things. That's not most people, they just don't have the courage to do it. And as you get into this, people want to know, like, well, hey, why did you want to come out and tell the truth regarding what Amway Corporation was doing around the globe? I didn't really understand this at the time, but literally they're in over 100 countries. And those same countries, over 71 of them, they have flipped elections. And this gets into Venezuela. They tried in Russia, they did it in Korea, they did it in Brazil. And in fact, when they didn't want to cooperate, what did they do? They put their presidents in prison.
Hmm.
And
Well, I
same
don't think we've
crew.
had any fair elections in the United States or anywhere on any other continent or anywhere on any other part of the world for the last 75 years.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
minimum.
this gets into the backbone of the people and the gentlemen behind the curtain that were pulling those levers and those
Yeah,
strings.
yeah.
You get into this Oval Office at the time, Gerald Ford that was sitting behind the desk, looking across from Colin Powell or Henry Kissinger or Rumsfeld. These groups at the same time are appointed to the senior executive service that Cheney and these guys were running. And these are the topics that people don't want to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
And that's this board. This is the Gerald Ford board in modern day history.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a live board. But here's the
Yeah.
funny part. It's located on Amway property
Interesting.
in Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Yeah.
And so what did they do? Is they built a shrine because they're Shriners of the
Mm-hmm.
Freemason Lodge, and they built a temple there for Gerald Ford's gravesite. Well, on top of that, which is interesting, is they have a board, they have a foundation. The people that sat on that board and that foundation, from Henry Kissinger to Alan Greenspan, which we're going to talk about money, these people, they got things off the gold standard at the time, and we started going off the rails,
Right.
and they were controlling things and driving stuff. You get into Dick Cheney and Hank Meyer or Donald Rumsfeld. People talk about all this all the time. Well, no, nothing's happening. I tell people all the time, where's Colin Powell today? Where's Donald Rumsfeld today? Where are the Cheneys today? As we start going through this list and we start talking about this stuff, it's fascinating to understand our history because most people don't know what happened in the 70s.
Mm-hmm.
In the 70s, obviously Gerald Ford got in, but who did he appoint to be the director of the CIA?
Cheney, right?
Mr. Bush.
Oh, Mr. Bush. That's right. A senior.
Yeah, Mr.
Yeah,
Bush here.
wasn't Cheney also involved with the CIA at one point?
Oh, well, of course. I mean, he was
Yeah.
running this senior executive service in the same process, but it's always the vice presidents. And you start looking at, well, who is the power hand behind the structures of a lot of stuff? And what a lot of people don't really understand is that in this stuff, who was Gerald Ford's vice president? Again, Gerald Ford was installed, but his vice president was a Rockefeller.
Right.
So Nelson Rockefeller and this group, all being controlled out of Grand Rapids, there's a long history there. And we start getting into the medical industrial complex. These guys, in terms of what they were doing, they were basically 1975. We actually had our last pandemic. People don't realize 1975 was the swine flu. And in that point, Gerald Ford of the pen, he ran his vaccination programs. About 1 million people in the United States died. They got caught then too, but they weren't able to pull it off, so they had to retool for the next event, which really came out in 2020. All of it really regarding controlling elections around the world. Um, but they had their goals and their plans and what they were doing with basically with the Georgia Guidestones. And as that comes back to this group, though, these people working together with Cheney, Gerald Ford, we talk about the Uniparty. They're working together. They're
Sure.
supposed to be Democrat and Republican, right? But then they say, well, oh, hey, well, we can do some business together and have Amway working together with all this stuff. I tell people all the time, in this picture here, this is Gerald Ford. This is the owner of Amway.
Right.
You know what Juanito always says? It's the names of the people that you don't really know.
Yeah, it's the people behind the curtain that you don't even see most often that run shit, and that's true.
One of the names you never hear of is this guy here, Van Andel.
Mm-hmm.
Another guy you really never hear much about is DeVos, but there was a Q drop 223. It said Betsy DeVos, she's more important than you know.
Mm.
And that caught my attention because I had been in the Amway ecosphere for over 40 years. Actually, 22 of it being a business owner in the Amway business, like you owning pizza shops. You know how to cut pepperoni, right?
Well, now it comes sliced.
But I mean, you know how to run a pizza
Oh
shop.
yeah, I know how to run a pizza shop. I know how to run business, period.
But if something goes wrong in the pizza shop, you know exactly what's happening, what's wrong, and you know how to
Yeah.
fix it. Well, what's interesting is there was a point in history where I knew how to fix something and I went to the right people and they told me to shut up. And
Mm.
as I started to come to understand this group here, this was the Gerald Ford organization. When you come to understand what's happening here, the guy right underneath the bottom of the ship of the helm is a guy by the name of Doug DeVos.
Mm.
He's staying there with Cheney. He's staying there with Rumsfeld and all these guys, working with the Bushes, doing all their things together. And people just didn't understand. So, what were they really doing? What was their main business? People don't understand this.
Hmm.
In Venezuela, what were they running? They were the secret hands behind the money that was being pushed around through all these societies in terms of election fraud.
Hmm.
You know, Michigan Economic Development Group, there was a group called CONICEC, data election stuff from China, that was running the data behind Dominion voting, LHS systems, and Smartmatic. And all that stuff had been run by the Bushes and this group for a very long time. Matter of fact, Chris Sununu was one of the governors on the East Coast for a long period of time, but his dad was actually the right-hand man to George Bush during all that. And
Hmm.
DeVos and Van Andels were funding him in terms of what was going on. I tell people this is all during the storm. President Trump's first presidency, he's there. He actually put, in my opinion, he put Betsy DeVos in the spotlight, and the whole media would never ever talk about her,
Mm.
which is interesting. But if you ever watch President Trump, you ever see him point his finger at somebody?
Hmm.
He was telling people who to watch. And that time, Betsy DeVos was a young person running George Bush's campaign back in his presidential elections. Well, as you come to find out, realizing that the DeVos and Van Andels, they funded Mr. Mike Pence here in his campaign. They inserted him into President Trump's administration.
Mm.
And as they move things around, these were things that I saw and witnessed as that things were coming around. Well, as you check into, say, the Amway website in terms of doing the things that you've done at the time, you could buy products from them, but you could also check out and do a donation to the Red Cross. I
Mm.
didn't understand what that was all about at the time, but as I started to realize that, gosh, Amway was also doing stuff with Haiti and then funding the Clinton Foundation. And
Yeah.
this is supposed to be a conservative group,
Yeah,
right?
there's a very evil company. I remember the logo was like the paw, a black paw of like a tiger or a lion. And I can't think of the name of the company that was funded by Amway, that had a lot to do with mercenaries. These were like hired army guys that would go into Iraq and just literally, they would get paid $600 a day or $3,000 a week to shoot people, right? But they were an independent, they were not part of the army.
Yeah, well, when you get into that, that's actually a really interesting topic. I didn't have it in my slide deck at the moment, but that's actually Betsy DeVos's brother, uh,
What's the name of that company?
Eric Prince. And Eric Prince, he runs what's called Blackwater,
There you go,
um,
Blackwater.
which is interesting because once you get into understanding Blackwater,
Yep.
Blackwater in their background, that group was actually technically they tried to say they sold it off to China, the CCP.
Hmm. Hmm.
But they kept the alphabet side of it and a couple other organizations that are still doing Black Ops. But the people want to know. So when you're looking into what at the time Blackwater was doing, they were running all the operations for Senior Executive Service
Wow.
and these mafias around the world for drug cartels and prostitution, child sex trafficking. And wait, it's supposed to be this conservative right-wing group, right? So it's just
Yeah.
just fascinating when once you see behind the details. But what they were doing though is they were orchestrating their time for China.
Hmm.
Everything was supposed to catapult everything for China to be up in the front in terms of what they were going to do. And these guys took the leadership. Matter of fact, people don't realize that who was the ambassador for China in the 60s? Anybody know?
I don't, I was born in the 60s, so I don't go back that far.
Well, if anyone studies George Prescott in the Bush family, you realize that George Bush was the ambassador over there who opened up that country for doing business.
Hmm.
And so they loved the Bushies in terms of what was happening. I keep this focused because when I started realizing what Amway was, you start looking at these companies that were doing things behind the scenes. Do you notice anything about those symbols there at all?
Well, I know that the symbol on the left is the Masonic symbol. right? With the
Yep.
all-seeing eye. The one on the right, it looks like an eye as well.
Yeah. Well, the one on the right is actually Amway corporate headquarters,
Right.
Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Yeah.
And what people didn't notice, and these were things I started to notice over time, was who they work for. What were they doing? If you look at that the logo, that eye, that's
Hmm.
the eye of Ra. They look at the sun god for Osiris. It's an ancient religion. One goes through and explains it pretty well, but Isis, Horus, and Osiris are really ancient teachings of Freemasonry that a lot of people don't understand. And for years beforehand, I didn't understand all this stuff, but I look at the Amway's office, their corporate office, in the background. That's actually Egyptian hieroglyphics. And I was always wondering, like, what is that? I didn't understand why they would have their office like that. Artifacts from there. But then at the corporate headquarters, they would have the sun god on the wall, Freemasonry, inside the Amway corporate headquarters, in which today is actually a Hilton hotel.
Oh,
Believe it or
really? It's no
not.
longer Amway headquarters?
It still is, but the ownership of the hotel side of it is given to Hilton. If you understand that relationship between China, that even makes it more important. This is actually the grand ballroom across from the Gerald Ford Ballroom, and that's the main area. If you see the two pillars, Joshin and Boaz, for a Freemason to understand what this is and who they worship, it's very key. you know, in the same room, if you look at this, the symbolism has a lot of meaning to it, but that's a griffin. If anyone knows what a griffin is, it's a Rothschild lion. The wings to it on the griffin are, basically part of the Nazi Reich.
Hmm.
And then once you understand what they're doing with that basket of fruit there, that's their first fruits giving to Baal. And so these symbolisms are all over the hotel. They were put there, obviously for purposes and reasons. But when you start to understand what are these guys doing, the pure evil behind everything, people are like,
Hmm.
"Oh man, you're crazy. You're seeing all kinds of stuff." I
If
don't
you
know
know what
about
to
in your
look for, you
no, I
know,
don't know about in your household, but do you have bath mitts as like decorations on your windows?
no.
They do there.
Yeah.
And so you start to look at these things and you start to go, what is going on here? And once you start to understand the history behind things, you start to understand Gerald Ford wasn't just his own man. He was in a club. And this is the group, when you start to look at behind the secret societies and these groups within the Freemason Lodge, the Blue Lodge or the York Rite or all the Scottish, like there's so many different degrees and sects that were the CIA had basically had taken over for the Illuminati. And once you understand this group or club, they would make their symbols anywhere they could go. So in Congress, they would buy off congressmen and senators. Amway actually was probably one of the largest contributors to Congress and Senate over the last, say, 20, 40 years. Matter of fact, I think they're the largest contributors to Mitch McConnell. But really, they thought they owned everything. And they're the secret hand in names of, there's many other names and families, but trying to control who they could put into certain offices. Why this picture is very important. That's actually my previous former upline, who's the chairman of the Amway board, right there on the left, giving that 666 symbol, um, because you know what? He's bought and paid for.
Yeah.
And the sad part about that whole thing is that a couple days after, all my buddies at the time were Amway business owners. Their homes got raided by the FBI. The FBI came to my house, and we have certain authorities in terms of what we took ownership of, but they came to intimidate us,
Sure.
and for certain reasons, they all went to jail, and I got a chance to tell the story. But the interesting part is, I went to him for a phone call. I said, our people, they need help." What did he tell me? He said, "Shut your mouth."
Hmm.
And from there, it escalated into a lot of other things, but not here to tell all that story at the moment. But you started getting into the politics and understand this. We were just at the Trump not too long ago. We were out
Yeah.
there for that great event for the fraud summit. We're going back for the Storm Summit. But every year, the political parties, the uniparties, where do they meet for their Republican gathering out in Las Vegas?
Hmm.
It's at the Venetian. And once you understand the power numbers and the structures, the 33s and the 55s, they're not by accident. And
Oh
oh,
no.
oh, by the way, where's that? Who's that? You see that Griffin there again?
Yep.
These are things that people they just don't understand because they're not they don't grow up learning the numbers, the system that they
Totally.
belong to. And so as we get into the topics of things, I just tell people all the time, you know, Betsy DeVos and her family, they bought off with millions, hundreds of millions of dollars to influence for a globalist agenda. And that was the goal, was to put China first in terms of what they're going to do. As we know this on January 6th, Mike Pence, he blocked the quorum for President Trump. You know, a lot of people right now they're upset at President Trump because of what the media has been doing to smear him.
Sure.
But I take people back to January 6th. On January 6th, this lady, who at the time I was building a business that was part of her structure, and I saw that she resigned from President Trump's office and said that he incited a riot. And I was like, wait a second, I was on the steps myself with 30 other people. He didn't incite a riot. We were there praying for the country, and then they opened up fire on us.
Right.
And matter of fact, I mean, it was so shocking to understand the whole thing. But my cell phone started going off days later, people in my business saying, hey, what's going on here? I don't understand things. I went to the Amway board and explained to all these people, hey, we got to get help for these people. I was basically, the door was shut and they told me to shut up. And as I started looking into things more, I started realizing, wow, these guys for years have been buying seats, buying people for their New World Order agenda, which really is China, it's London, it's those controllers from the British. And so Gerald Ford, that whole group, if you look at a key turning point for the British, there was a place called Mackinac Island in northern Michigan that these guys used to go as a retreat, very similar to today's Epstein Island.
Mm.
Um, but in the retrospect, what brought these people together was their fortitude to basically impeach Donald Trump. They tried to do it through the first administration. They want to do it through the second. This here is where they gave basically they helped fund Mike Pence $80 million out of the Amway Treasury and relationships to block him from becoming president of the United States. And I ask everybody, I challenge them on this on is why?
He is the personification of evil. I just never liked him, to be quite honest with you. Not to get off track, are you still involved with Amway? Are you still collecting residuals from Amway?
No, actually, when they cut me out, they terminated my business. And once they terminated my business, we went through basically the district court where they threw it out. They tried to hide the case from what was happening. And this is actually funny. This is Colin Powell at one of our conferences telling the entire Amway field that he's now at Amway IBO.
Huh.
When when that happened, I literally I remember it. The hair stood up on the back of my head, my neck, and I was like, "Oh my God!" Because I knew his involvement in 9/11. And as we get on into that stuff,
Yeah,
what was
let's keep that
happening?
under the radar. I don't want to get my channel shut down. So just talk in layman's terms. Our audiences are smart enough to read between the
Yeah,
lines.
yeah. And so as we start getting into this, the back end of this thing is where things got fascinating. Um, as a business owner, before it was even time, Amway was mailing out basically welcoming gifts for the the this, if you know what I'm saying. So
Yeah.
they sent literally hundreds of masks, and we were supposed to send these out to our groups to
Hmm.
help instill the fear in all of them.
Right.
Um, one of the things that is not told is that Amway actually had what was called a bioweapons lab called the Van Andel Institute on their property. And this guy just happened to run it. Oh, how convenient.
Hmm.
He's actually Fauci's boss. This is actually him delivering his speech to the board in the Amway Hall beforehand. This is, I think, from 2014, 2013. So you start getting in there, you go like, how long were they planning this? And then
Long time.
Obama hires him as the NHI director.
Mm-hmm.
So you can see where this is going as they go to institute things, and people didn't realize. So Microsoft, again, another partner to Amway. Um, Very fascinating topic, but these are the main players that were in and behind the Amway structure, the Amway business. People didn't
Yeah.
realize that that's why they started infiltrating countries around the world to basically help pull off their New World Order agenda.
Hmm.
And so this is the Amway from a top in terms of Grand Rapids. When you're looking at it, people will start going like, "What's that mean?" Once you understand the locations and the addresses, each one of these addresses is a 33. So the FBI office in Grand Rapids, the address is 33. Oh, it just happens to be on the same
They're all
property.
30, they're all 33rd degree Masons.
Yeah, it's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
And what people don't understand is, so in Disney World, they have what's called the 33 Club.
Hmm.
And so what we would do is we would qualify in the Amway business, beknownst to many of us. We would go to Amway. We'd go to Disney for a trip, all expenses paid. Oh, it's so great. It's so great. You need to come. You need to bring your families, do all this other stuff. While they're getting inundated by the Mickey Mouse music themes and all this other stuff. And later that night, you're going over to the 33 Club for what they call a night owl. And you're just communicating. And really what it is, it's a form of MK Ultra mind control. And as they get you into a group think, they're trying to push their agendas.
Sure.
Just like they do, you go to a NBA basketball game and they own the Orlando Magic.
Mm-hmm.
So when you understand the magic, all that stuff's into Freemasonry. But the back end of what we need to talk about are these juice things that they were sticking in our bloodstream. This Van Andel Institute, if you even look at this is their logo. Even their logo is a Baphomet.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And so you're like, wow,
Yeah.
what were these guys doing for all these years?
Mm-hmm.
Check this out, man. They built with their partnerships on one of their properties what's called Graham Pharmaceutical. So, okay, there's Amway. One block over, they now have built this other facility. What are they producing there? They're producing based upon Department of Justice wrote this document here basically to get them off. But the DoD gave them a COVID contract for $160 million to produce Pfizer vaccines and Johnson & Johnson vaccines. I don't know about you, Mel, but is there anybody on planet Earth talking about what I'm talking about right now?
Not too many.
Not too many. And then they had the audacity to go over to another address of theirs. Like, oh, it's a 33 again. And then inoculate over 20,000 people within the Grand Rapids community with that
Yeah.
little jabber.
The safe and effective that most of us didn't take.
Yeah, this real safe and effective. And then they got this was the marketing campaign that they did for their employees. Oh, how kind of them to be able to get them to want to take the jab. The girl on the left, I don't know if you see it, she's got the devil horns popped up
Mm-hmm.
on her hands. Um, but a lot of people don't understand what the beast system was down here. This MediBuddy internationally was going to control and track a lot of these people. And so um, they weren't shy about it. They actually
No, I
did a
know.
full-blown video for the New World Order. This is actually came out of their video. I didn't make any of these crap up. It's the real deal. It's on my website. Them pushing the New World Order, and people are like, "Oh my gosh!" Like they wanted people to accept this stuff. These are the people standing in circles, going to their work. This is them saying, "Hey, they're going to eat lunch, uh, you know, out of a circle on their table." Check into work by getting your head basically temperature done.
Yeah.
And where this stems from is the United Nations. They are partners with the UN, and in the process of what they did with the United Nations is they had their agenda of what they wanted to do. Amway was a full partner of the United Nations. Why? This comes back to this Gerald Ford group and these Freemason groups of what they want to do to basically create their one world government. And
Yeah.
it's not a conspiracy theory at all anymore. It's
Mhm.
now conspiracy fact. But
And
once
the
you start
people
to,
at the top who got everybody to stand in those circles were laughing at us. I
yeah,
mean, it's just a mind control. It was a complete mind fuck.
and it completely is. And but the thing is I spent 22 years in the mind F, and I had to get out of it in terms of the mindset. And this was these were our catalogs where they were covering the eye and selling the products. Katy Perry was speaking and singing at the celebrations for everybody. You know, when you start seeing the owners of the company hosting Katy for the events, you got to start scratching your head going, okay, I'm in the wrong association. But typically, it was January 6th and COVID that woke us up.
Yeah. Now, what
This
was your full involvement with J6?
So J6 really at the time, I was an Amway business owner. And this is kind of key. This is interesting. Um, Growing up in the Amway business, we were always, there was a kind of an alter agenda. They would be able to say, hey, if you're going to be at our conferences and functions, it's kind of an unwritten rule, but we want you to vote for the Republican candidate. And we want you to go out and push the Republican candidate. And by the way, if you want to come to a Bush rally, which I did many of them, or the Mitt Romney rallies, or the Obama rallies, or whatever, you could actually work the doors and you can help usher the people in so they can learn and be indoctrinated with more uniparty crap for the Freemasons. And so I spent many years going to all the events and pushing all the stuff and helping and standing in line and helping for other people as volunteers. And then what happened was George Bush, in terms of what 9/11 and all that stuff happened. This is interesting. This picture on the right, this was my other upline in Amway. This is basically the night of the 2020 election.
Interesting.
Standing there with George Bush. And that moment, I was like, oh my goodness. These guys full blown tried to take over the President Trump's presidency.
Yeah.
And I started realizing what was happening. I don't know if you know who this guy is on the right. This is Junior.
Right. Is he still alive?
That's a great question. I don't know. I mean, some people they have
Some people
these
swear by the fact that he's alive.
they have
Eh,
these theories and things like that, but I'm not privy to all that. But I do know as I study history, the guy on the left here, this is Gerald
yeah.
Ford. Gerald Ford ran the Warren Commission. You know what the Warren Commission was?
Yes. When JFK Sr. got shot.
So he ran the cover-up operation. What's interesting is, do you think the guy on the right here knew exactly who killed his father?
100%.
100%. And so when you get into this, you start to realize that these people here, these bankers, the people who got rid of the gold, started buying things up, were trading fake Federal Reserve money. Alan Greenspan and all those other people that are part of the same Amway board, the
Hmm.
same Gerald Ford board, tried to pull over a fast one on the American people. And as we start to look at this thing, we start to realize that Gerald Ford and George Bush and this whole crew were all working together.
Yeah.
What's fascinating is President Trump, he put out this X message himself.
Yeah.
Treason.
Well, my question to you is, I guess, uh, are we going to see the arrests? I mean, I know that Comey's in a lot of trouble right now. They got him dead rights to center. There's no way for him to. The only thing he could do at this point is maybe get life without parole, and they'll spare his life. But he's going to have to sing like a canary to do that because otherwise he's going to get a couple of shots behind the ear.
Well, I believe you're right. As you know, I went to this, the court system, which is rigged. President Trump said it's rigged.
Oh,
You know, the district court threw my case out, and so I have, by right of a U.S. citizen, based
yeah.
on the Constitution, I went to the Fourth Circuit Appellate Court. Three Bush appointee judges, what do they do? They're supposed to vote on my case, and there's
Hmm.
three of them are supposed to give a vote. What did they do? They filed to hide my case. So they hid my case. Well,
Wow.
based upon my rights, I have the right to take it to the Supreme Court. So there's a lot of traction to following this thing. Now I'll say this could be coincidence. I don't know. But do you see my Supreme Court case number?
Yeah, 24-1007.
So we got a 1007 on my Supreme Court case with all the details as to who was behind COVIDCon and election fraud in my case
Mm,
and J6. I
yeah.
just think that's a very interesting coincidence. There's a lot of coincidences in this world.
Yeah. Well, you got South Korea just got, completely destroyed on their election. There's a major cover up going on over there. As a matter of fact, the guy who actually won the presidency was at the last summit in Vegas with us. He actually was sitting right in front of me.
Yeah.
So this has been going on forever. Listen, you have the illusion that your voting counts. The only choice you have in America is 33 bagels. Okay, like George Carlin says.
That's 100% true. And as you get into this whole thing, there's two things that would be really great if President Trump was able to do. Can't do it on his own. But
But
if we could
he
have,
still has a lot of swamp creatures surrounding him. Look, I don't buy the nonsense. Oh, he put them there to expose them. Listen, we're way past the exposure stage. Okay, the brass knuckles got to come out. Okay, the gloves got to come off, and body parts need to start flying. Period.
yeah, and I totally agree with you. And as we look at this whole thing, as we come down to these last moments, obviously, November 3rd of this year, based upon the moon cycles, would be the slaughter. Um,
I'm ready. I've
we,
been ready. I mean, I think a lot of people in America who are awake been ready. I think
well,
you are too.
we totally are. And the biggest part of that whole thing is in this aspect of, say, the Great Awakening, why, we could debate and look at it from a standing time, but why would it take so long? Why would they have to go through so much to be able to get us to the point of understanding this thing from an angle to where now the people can understand it? To stop the ability of having a civil war, um, is a very fascinating topic. I don't understand why and how everything works. But the reality is, these groups, they got caught.
Hmm.
And as we come in the back to look at this whole thing, you start realizing, okay, every 6 months we have a massive funeral. And
Right.
as we look at those funerals, you know, you look at the whole fact that Graham is gone now.
Hmm. Was he gone or was he off?
It's a great question, isn't it? I think the American people are due the rights to know. The whole Charlie Kirk thing. Again, you look at it from every single way, sideways, up and down, back and right. You start to go, okay, there's fraud, there's manipulation. Anyone with a thinking mind can look at that and go, wait a second, even the shooter was identical. If you look at his facial fixtures and everything else, the storyline, it goes back to JFK's assassination.
The whole thing makes no sense, by the way. The
It
whole
makes no
Charlie Kirk
sense.
thing makes no sense.
And so when you come back to this, you go, wait a second, did they have to go through extreme means to bring us back to 1964 to shake up the minds, to get people to really lean in and think, like, so who are the people behind the curtain that have been pulling all these strings for all these years? You mentioned it very clearly. The Bear Claw guy. And those black ops, it seems like
Blackwater.
the same groups are all in with the Mossad. They're in with MI6, MI5.
Yeah.
Um, they're in obviously now with the CCP because he sold that operation to them, which is he not still an advisor? That stuff all goes into the Ukraine.
Yeah, but
You
I
know,
understand Xi Jinping is not really, he's had a change of heart. He wants to be part of the reset. He wants to be part of heaven on earth. So does Putin. So does Modi. Bolsonaro, we got to figure out a way to get him out of jail. I know his son's going to be down at the Storm Summit again. Hopefully, we can get a little quiet corner and do a quick interview with him. You know,
yeah, and
I
you're right. Those people, those are the people that say they're waking up. The city of London, which go back to these 17s, right? The Lodge of London, the Mason Freedom Lodge of London was the first lodge. The address is 1717. You go back to the Scottish Rite Mason Lodge in DC, it's 3317. What is happening here by the numbers? These 33s they've taken over everything. And the 17s have taken over everything from that perspective. They keep flashing who's having victory. As we get back into what people would talk about biblically, this is fascinating actually. We were in Cape Cod a couple weeks ago, and Juanito said something that was fascinating. There's a statue there, the Faith Monument, and that Faith Monument, it's actually standing there. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but it's pointing to God. And then its other arm, it's holding, and this isn't debatable if anyone's able to study history, it's holding a Bible. And that Bible is really interesting because it's not any Bible, it's the Geneva Bible. Well, why is that important? Because that Geneva Bible actually holds 20 some odd chapters that the Schofield and the King James Bible don't have in them. And so one of the books in there, the book of Enoch, which is really fascinating. I did the security for a lady by the name of Sheila Holmes. We were in DC for the 250-year reunion, and we got a chance to go on a tour of the Bible Museum. What was fascinating is we got to the Bible Museum, as we got to the top floor. What do you know is on the top floor of the Bible Museum? The actual book of Enoch. Are you
Interesting.
kidding me?
The 18 chapters they ripped out.
And nobody's telling anybody that it's there.
That's sounds like a conspiracy theory, bro.
But it's there. Here's what's so cool is to
I
be
know Sheila,
there.
by the way. Sheila was at our last
Sheila
summit.
Sheila kicked this guy in the balls and explained to him what was going on in a short 3 to 5 minute conversation, which was fabulous because she was able to articulate the 200 fallen angels at Mount Hermon that fell, that have been creating all this Baal worship and child trafficking, all this crap, and what's been happening to really our elected leaders around the world because of these bloodline families. And at the end of the conversation, he said, how can I get some of the knowledge that you know about? And she's like, well, I'll mail you my 5 book series. And he earnestly, he was the head of the Bible Museum. And I think later that night, President Trump was supposed to be coming there speaking, but I think that got disrupted a little bit. But anyways, nevertheless, that woman, some of the things she's able to articulate and explain to people that have been hidden for centuries, because really these people, they took over basically the communication trails, they took over the churches, they took over things in terms of being able to how things were supposed to be. And so it's just fascinating to see that. But getting back to this, if President Trump or the generals behind him could create fair and real elections again, that would be great. And then sound money. We get into this whole topic of sound money. Silver and gold destroys the Fed. Bottom line. And so if we can get back to a sound money, and that's this is where everyone goes haywire because they don't
But
understand how can you do it.
they have to allow it to, they have to stop the manipulation, number one. Okay. And they have to allow silver and gold to be worth what it wants to be worth. Right.
Yep.
And right now, we're not there yet. I mean, we know silver is going to probably go conservatively by 2030, it'll be over two, 3,000 bucks conservatively.
And it's because it's the demand, the usage,
Yeah.
and the things it's used in. And so if we take the rev limiter off and let it go where it's supposed to go, that's where it's going to go. It's been manipulated
Right.
by the
Just like
JP
XRP
Morgans.
and just like a lot of the ISO tokens. And,
Yeah.
I mean, today everybody's celebrating. We went up by 10 cents or 11 cents and they're, woo, you know, call me when it
Yeah,
goes up to
it's
$11.
interesting you say that because I remember, gosh, I think it was 2019. I just remember I was sitting there and XRP had gone over $3 and I was watching this and of all places,
What year was that?
2019, I
Yeah,
think.
2017 going into 2018. That was the
Yeah, yeah,
bull
yeah,
run.
yeah.
Hit three
Just,
dollars
yeah,
and 92 cents.
2017.
Right.
And I remember watching it and where of all places did it get really cut down? You remember this?
It's been a while.
South Korea.
Oh,
Because
interesting.
overnight in South Korea, it went ballistic. And they said, oh crap, we need to shut this down now.
Yeah.
And so immediately the prices started to fall.
Yeah.
South Korea's exchanges and
Yeah.
all the arbitrage started to change and stop.
Yeah. Yeah.
And people started realizing, okay, we found out what we actually had our hands on.
Well, here's the thing with XRP, the market cap, first of all, market cap is something that was created to calculate stocks,
Yeah.
companies, okay, their worth, etc. It was not and never intended to be calculating cryptocurrency. This is the people who created the market cap for cryptos are the Bitcoin bros. Okay. That this is a third dimensional world tool that's going to stay in the third dimensional and it's going to die in the third dimensional. Okay. When you go back to the market cap, when XRP decouples completely from everything on planet Earth, and you're going to go back to the market cap and you don't even see XRP listed there anymore, you'll remember this conversation. The reason why it's not going to be listed there anymore is because if it's listed in this three-dimensional tool, the numbers can be so astronomical that people cannot wrap their mind around it because they don't understand that we're going to graduate into a world where we're going to be moving every day of the week $100 quadrillion per year or more. And when you're talking about, artificial intelligence, universal basic income, you got 9 other things that are coming that we can't even see yet. You got corporation to corporation moving money. You got remittances. You got banks to banks moving money. You got government to government moving money. It's going to be astronomical. Okay. And people don't understand basic math. So I'm very sure that the XRP has to be worth a huge number for them to do what they want to do and get rid of the SWIFT system altogether.
Well, it's interesting as you go back to these things, like, I'm a researcher. Um, the reason why I'm a researcher is
Mm,
because I was under a health situation, and to survive, I had to find the answers. And when you
sure.
do that to a point where your your existence depends on your research, you look at things a little bit deeper than everybody else.
Oh yeah.
And it causes people to wake up. But when you start looking at and you start going, wait a second, the analysts, the developers of the XRP ledger, they were doing a party one night and they actually snapped a picture of the entire team. And the head developer, the thing I noticed and no one really even caught was he was wearing a t-shirt and the t-shirt said, had a big X on it, and above it it said AG or AU. And I was like, wait a second, gold. That was his message.
Hmm.
Gold, XRP. And so when you start to look into the drops, one drop of an XRP is 1 millionth of the decimal to the right.
Yeah. Well,
That's when you start to understand the power of what the ledger is capable of doing. And obviously, these institutions can be rolled in and can be doing things properly if they can be audited based upon a gold standard.
right.
So
Sure.
Yeah,
Let
this was
me
fun, man. I appreciate the time.
yeah, let me show you something. I'm sure you probably never seen this. You ever see my intro? By the way, I just
Yeah,
did a podcast with Nino Rodriguez.
yeah, it was awesome.
Let me see where it is. Here we go. I'm just gonna cue it up here real quick. All right, here we go. And blow that up. I don't know if you've ever seen this, but
You got to go to sharing.
here we go. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, I see it.
You see the X?
Yeah, I do.
You see the face of God right next to it?
Yep, I do.
You notice it's not the Bitcoin logo?
Yeah, 100%.
Now, listen, I'm going to go down with the ship. Unless God is into practical jokes, I'm going to go down with the ship. I don't believe God is into practical jokes. I don't think God comes to God. At the time, I was an atheist. I didn't believe anymore. So I'm trying to wake people up for 40 plus years. And when you do this thing of, this New World Order, and you're trying to wake people up for as long as we have, and people don't wake up, and the guy that supposedly lives in the sky doesn't come down and fix his shit, you start to doubt shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think from a biblical standpoint, he's given each and every one of us the Holy Spirit for discernment. And he also said that you and I can do greater things than he.
Mm-hmm.
And as we look into that, you know what? We're taking authority. We're doing the things that we need to do. And ultimately, when the things start to happen that are going to happen, um, I think people are going to be more pleasantly surprised than they thought they were going to be. And
Yeah.
ultimately, when it comes back to, like Juan says all the time, is the financial systems, the towers have to be reset. And so when that stuff comes down, they're going to have to come back on with online with a new system. And when that new system comes on, I do not believe Bitcoin obviously is in that system. Number one, if anyone's ever done a transaction on it, it's it's slow as a dog.
Yeah. And
Um,
it costs a lot of money and it uses too much energy. Look, Bitcoin was the beta for XRP.
totally
When they
believe it.
built the first Motorola brick phone,
Yep.
okay, they wanted to build a Motorola brick phone to see if they could build one. Does anybody use the Motorola brick phone today anymore? No.
Nope. They used the new and improved.
The new and improved, iPhone 17, right?
Yep.
And iPhone 17 is XRP, and Bitcoin is still the Motorola brick phone. I hate to tell you,
You know
it
what's
doesn't do anything.
fascinating? What's
Huh?
fascinating is I remember when the U.S. Treasury actually was testing XRP, the dates, the times of when they were doing all that. I noticed certain banks, as you use certain banks, before it'd take you about 3 days if you deposited something, and in 3 days you'd it finally would pass through the system, and they'd finally get your credit for it. But if you notice, certain systems used today, if you make a deposit, it's instant.
Yeah,
And so I believe a lot of this stuff's already online.
yeah.
It's just not online publicly for the world to know.
Yeah, I think the people who understand the vision, that believe in my picture in the sky, and it's not the Bitcoin logo, it's the XRP logo next to the face of God. So if God wanted me to push Bitcoin, there would have been a Bitcoin logo there,
It's true.
right?
That's true. Yeah.
Why did he put out of 29,000 tokens? Why did he put XRP there?
Well, I tell people all this time, and even in my findings, what we're dealing with right now is the displacement of the Federal Reserve and getting rid of this money that's been put on pallets around the world for terrorists to use to be able to terrorize people. And when the things flip, all that Federal Reserve notes become firewood,
Mm-hmm.
toilet paper. And don't kid ourselves. They've printed the new US Treasury notes,
Oh yeah.
and those have got to have a serial number that goes back to something. As we transact and we watch silver and we watch gold, Actually, today, you just look at this. You can go to President Trump, go to whitehouse.gov. He posted the other day, right after Fauci's plead the fifth, at the bottom of the website, it said the gold standard on the
Yeah,
website,
yeah.
on the US. So now you start to go, okay, for anyone to wrap their minds around this,
Mm-hmm.
if you have a gold standard and a silver standard, how do you track it?
Yeah. Do you know who Pompliano is?
Yep,
Okay. I can't think of his first name.
it's George, isn't
Pompliano.
it?
Huh?
George?
Something like that. But anyway, Pompliano is this good looking Italian guy, perfect smile, perfect teeth. He tweeted years ago. He said they're afraid of Bitcoin with the exact words. He goes, wait until they see XRP. And the big
Right.
boys went and grabbed him and said, you're never allowed to talk about XRP ever again. You
And
work.
that's the thing is that the most people they'll say that you can't talk about it. And whenever you do come in the conversations, everywhere, when something isn't talked about, you're right over the target. And
Yeah.
one of the fascinating things, I thought this was really cool. We were at the top of the Trump
Anthony
Tower.
Pompliano.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So he's I believe he works for Sailor. I believe he works for Novogratz, Michael Novogratz. I believe he's on the payroll of what's that guy? I can't think of his name. He's the guy that gave Alex Jones a computer with 10,000 bitcoins, and Alex could not get into the computer. Oh, I can't think of the guy's name. Jewish guy with curly hair. He ripped up $10. We don't need this. We got Bitcoin at the Bitcoin conference. Yeah. I can't think of his name off the top of my head. But anyway, if you guys remember, just write it down below. Yeah, he's three guys payroll Pompliano entire thing. He's going around now. He's on Fox News. He's on MSNBC. He's the face of Bitcoin, but he was hand selected. You know.
Well, as we come to a close with this, I think this is fascinating just because God answers prayer.
Oh yeah.
And I don't know if you can see that back there, but
Hmm.
that obviously is the Magador coat. I've got it signed by pretty much every person within the movement and all
Hmm.
the important generals that
Hmm.
I've tracked down. And what I loved, this was my confirmation. I went to many of them. I'd lay the coat down on the table and I would say, "Would you sign my coat?" The ones who said proudly, they put their John Hancock on that thing and they'd sign and date it. And they'd have this smirk on their face. And then you come across the other people and they look at it and literally it's like God would not let them sign the coat because they're in disobedience.
Hmm.
They're like, "No, I'm not signing that." You're like, because they didn't know. And so when you understand the storm here, which is fascinating, so how I came to even be a part of this entire movement, one day I was with Sheila Holm. This is literally 2021, maybe
Mm.
2022, I think, 2021. Got a chance to meet her. And I had a revelation and I prayed and I prayed and I prayed, and all these slides came together with me and my findings of the Amway Corporation, which is a CIA operation
Hmm.
through Kissinger and all that group, with a medical industrial complex connected to it through Rockefeller. This is a God breathed puzzle that was given back to the American people so they can understand it.
Sure.
I did not want to publish it. I did not want to do anything with it. As I was driving down to an event, I had not met Sheila Holm yet. And God kept telling me, pull over, print off your document. And I'm like, no. Kept driving. It got worse. I got antsy in the car. He's
Mm.
like, pull over and print it. And I'm like, no, I don't. Why would I print it? It has no bearing on anything. Kept driving, kept
Hmm.
driving. And literally, if you've ever had an encounter with God, I pulled over and right there's a FedEx print shop. And I was like, okay, I gotta fill up my gas. I'm gonna print this off. Later that
Yeah.
night, it was probably about 2 o'clock in the morning. I get a chance to meet Sheila Holm and we're chatting. we're chatting. I brought up a certain topic of the Rockefellers, and she's like, "Can I see your document?" So I show her the document, and she goes, "Wow, I have to show this to a friend of mine." She's like, "Can I have this?" I'm like, "Sure, take it." Right? It's probably about 3 weeks later. Phone number I didn't recognize comes through, and it's from 107. And he's like, "Do you have any idea what you have unearthed?"
Yeah.
I said, "Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I know exactly
Uh,
what it is."
107 doesn't sleep much. I can tell you, him and I, we exchanged text messages at 3, 4 o'clock in the morning many times.
Well, he's wise beyond words,
Oh,
but
yeah.
from a praying perspective, I prayed basically to the point of bleeding about anguish over these topics and what happened on January 6th because I had all my friends that were imprisoned and for no reason and no answers. And I said, Father, give me answers to this. Let me know why and what and how. And I got a revelation, and then I got a phone call from Juan um, right when I was praying over all that stuff. And so, as he always says it all the time, this is a team event.
Yeah.
This is about the bigger team of God's people, and we are going to win.
Yeah.
And that is going to come down to a godly financial equation and also sound elections. And
Yeah.
so I'm
We are
proud to.
cre we are creating a very special 4.5 minute trailer of my movie, Dear Mr. President, Show Me the Money, a movie about the
That's
straw
a
man.
great, great film, by the way.
Did you watch it?
Yeah, it was incredible.
Yeah.
Well
Thank you.
done.
I
Thank you
appreciate
for
it.
your time, your
I
effort.
thought I thought it was I got so many calls, Judah, that people like I never understood it. Never until I watched your movie. Now I understand it.
Yep.
Hundreds of calls, hundreds.
Yeah, and you're going to get another opportunity at the Storm Summit. And it was great you getting a chance to explain it there at the Fraud Summit.
Yeah.
But it's so cool. The atmosphere for all the
Yeah.
people. If you can
Yeah.
get to this event, literally, I was sitting back listening to all the people that Juan had on stage and their interactions with him, because they're very similar to mine and Juan's
Sure.
interaction, is we found each other.
Hmm.
God put people together and we all connected. But here's the interesting part is he's rallying these troops, the we the peoples. He's having every whistleblower and every person who was an outcast in their community on stage speaking. He's giving them the microphone that they were censored from.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I value that so much to think that, wow, these people now have the opportunity to share what God wants them to hear because they were right. They were right the entire time.
Yeah. Brother, we got a quantum summit coming up mid-November in Cape Canaveral at my center. We fit about 230, 240 people at the center. We'll sell out like 250 chairs because there's always 20, 30 people hanging out outside networking. So the chairs are empty. So I'm over going to sell the chair. But anyway, long story short, we got a team of scientists coming in from Japan. We have a product that we're going to be introducing, Ground Zero being my wellness center, Staying Alive, Cape Canaveral. Uh, and we're talking about a product that we have right now. Right now, it's actually three products that I wish I could tell you what it is, but I'm under non-disclosure until I have my final meeting. I think with the CEO and the scientific team on Friday, and the investors. There's gonna be round one, round two. First round is 2 million. Second, 2 to 3 million. Second round is going to be about 60 million. But
Wow.
this is going to be a multi-trillion-dollar company out of the gate because of what it is. We're talking about anti-aging, incredibly noticeable. I mean, it is undoubtable. You cannot deny what it is you're seeing. We're talking age spans of 350 years old is here right now.
Well, keep us in mind. Communication is key. And
Yeah.
here's what's really happening is that the wealth of the wicked is laid up for that of the righteous, and we're having a
Well,
transfer of that knowledge.
Yeah.
back to their people.
Yeah.
And it's exciting time. So I'm proud
Yeah,
of
when
you.
this is all said and done, I'm even going to introduce them to Juanito, and we'll have these people come to Vegas, etc. Whether they come through a Zoom call or whether they come in person, this is a revolutionary. The mother-in-law before and after is striking. As a matter of fact, let me see if I can pull it up because I want to show you that. Striking, striking, striking. When you see the pictures of before and after, you're like, oh my God, are you kidding me? This is the mother-in-law. He's actually married into royalty, and here it is. Here it is. I want you to see this now. This is the before. I want you to study her face. This is the before. You see that? And this is the after.
Wow,
This is before. This is 7 weeks later, dude.
that's awesome.
This is before. This is after. This am I allowed to share something that's really gross? A guy got, I think, his arm burnt on his motorcycle while the exhaust was really really hot. And if you could take it, that's before. 5 days later of applying this material, gone.
That's
Before,
awesome.
after. Before, after. I been chasing immortality for a long time. And if we're going to be in a war, I want everybody to be wealthy. I want everybody to be healthy. I want us to be here for a long time because we might not be able to win this war in 5, 10 years. This war is going to go on for a while.
Well, it's been going on since the beginning of time.
Exactly. You cannot expect
It's,
that to just boom disappear.
yeah, but the pendulum has shifted, and that is a good thing. So,
Well,
thank,
unless Donald
thank
Trump arrests everybody and brings everybody down to Guantanamo Bay, that's guilty, which I would welcome that. But that's
I
wishful
think we're going to
thinking.
get it. I think we're going to get a strong portion of what we're requesting. So, stand by, stay tuned, and buckle up.
Yeah. Does
And
Donald Trump stick around in 2028 for at least another 2 years?
well, so as we look at things and as I dissect stuff, you got to understand. So he brought in. He's the only president in our time frame. Brought in all the generals to Quantico. So there
Mm-hmm.
was over 600 generals that were brought in from around the world.
Mm-hmm.
That day, what did he
I,
tell the
I
people?
remember.
He said in his speech, he said, the enemy is in this room. You could hear a pin drop
Wow.
as they all looked around at each other. And I believe that that day, some people went to the left walking down the hallway, and some people went to the right. And so there are grand jury trials going around the United States right now, and there are military things that are happening. So we're not privy to that. President Trump even said, he's like, I am not going to show you my war plans, but know that they are warring. And as I can confirm from multiple, I guess, events or being around people, Juan is definitely not only connected, but in my opinion, he's one of the 10 that is read in to the topics that are going on. And as we start to come to understand this next chapter, what's happening, everything on the cue boards has been confirmed.
Yeah. Yeah.
The guy's been right. And
Yeah.
then when he said, hey, make sure you have your silver at the right time, um, what's he calling for now? He said today in his broadcast, $400 the next quarter. So 400 to $1,000 is where the barometer of where silver is going. So what's that tell us? That tells us that the Great Reset is going to happen very soon.
Yeah.
And so I'm excited for it. I'm excited for everything else going on. I'm excited really for my friends, my families, and our neighbors
Mm-hmm.
that are waking up because now they're starting to realize, wow, Mel and Judah were right. They were
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And you
Hey,
know
I'm gonna
what?
hold you back a little bit. Let me pause the recording here real quick.
Yeah.
Guys, we'll catch you on the next one. How do they reach you on your website?
They can reach me at what's called wewillstand.info. It's got my social medias on there as well. But
Okay.
and then my Supreme Court case that is on there as well, which states and shows the election interference that was done and performed and paid for Mike Pence by Betsy DeVos.
Mhm.
And so the facts don't lie.
Very cool. Thank you for coming, brother. Hold on.
Always, man. Always.
A structure so deeply embedded, most of those inside it don't even realize what they are a part of. Institutions you trusted operating within a framework you were never meant to question. And while you worked, struggled to survive, something bigger was moving behind the curtain. In this documentary, we exposed the largest financial deception in the history of mankind. Not with options, but with evidence. Irrefutable, irrevocable, undeniable. This is not about politics. This is about power. This is about control. And most importantly, this is about you. Because the moment you truly see it, the illusion collapses. The distractions lose its grip. The noise disappears, and the question becomes unavoidable. When this film is released, the truth will no longer be hidden. It will be undeniable, uncontainable, unstoppable. My job is to expose it. Your job is to make sure the world sees it. Now, will you have the courage to face it, to share it, to break free from the system that was designed to keep you enslaved forever? Or will you ignore the greatest revolution of our time? The truth is here. You will either stand up and help us dismantle the Matrix, or the Matrix will enslave you and your family for 1,000 years to come. The choice is yours. God knows I did my job.